Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today in this video, let's look at how to build a calculator using Angular and Tailwind CSS from scratch. So without wasting any time, let's begin. Alright, so guys, before we begin, any of you are new to Octa Academy YouTube channel, please don't forget to subscribe. Alright, so as I said in the intro, in this tutorial, we're gonna be build an Angular calculator from scratch. For the design part, we will use the Tailwind CSS, right? So guys, if any of you are new to Angular, I recommend you guys to watch my Angular 8+ hours master course on the YouTube, where you can learn A to Z about Angular framework. I'll leave the link in the description. And also guys, in this tutorial, we will be using Tailwind CSS as well. For this also, I have created a full overall course. If any of you are interested, you can check that as well. The links are in the description. Alright, so let's begin. So first thing first, we have to generate a new Angular app using the Angular CLI. So open your command prompt or the terminal and run this command. ng new, and the project name is ASMR calculator. So guys, I'm creating this tutorial based on my ASMR series, so that's why this project name is ASMR calculator. So don't worry about that. So we are not going to use the Angular router feature, so it's not an issue with this. Give yes or no, anything that you want. Now select the preferred CSS method. I select CSS and hit enter. This may take several seconds to minutes. Wait until this installation is complete. Alright, our Angular app is ready to go. Now let's open this inside the VS Code. Awesome. So for the calculator design, we're going to use the Tailwind CSS. So let's install and configure Tailwind CSS inside our Angular project. So how do we install and configure Tailwind CSS? So we can find this in the Tailwind CSS official documentation. So I'll leave the link in the description. So first copy this npm command and paste it inside the VS Code integrated terminal. Hit enter to execute this command. Once it is completed, copy the second command and paste it here. So guys, this will create the Tailwind CSS configuration file. Once it's done, next copy this code and paste it inside this Tailwind config.js file. Perfect. So now next copy these style imports inside this styles.css file. So as you know, this is the main CSS file of our Angular app, right? Okay, so we have successfully completed the Tailwind configuration. Next, let's run this Angular app. So inside the integrated terminal, run this command ng serve. So as you guys know, this will compile all the Angular files and open this inside the web browser. So this is how this Angular default boilerplate looks like. So open the app component HTML file. Inside that, we can see this boilerplate code. We don't need this, so remove it. Now let's see whether this installed Tailwind CSS is working or not. So just simply create an h1 tag and the text is Angular calculator. Next, let's add some Tailwind CSS classes. Inside this class and the CSS class, text-red-700 and text-3xl. As you can see here, these Tailwind CSS utility classes apply to this h1 tags, which means everything working as we expected. Awesome. So now let's begin the design. So remove this h1 tag. We don't need that anymore. Inside this app component HTML file, create a div. Inside this, add these Tailwind CSS classes. min-w-screen, min-h-screen, bg-teal900, flex, items center, justify center, px-5, py-5. That's it. So you guys may wonder what these Tailwind CSS classes are doing, right? The first CSS class min w screen will set this div min width to the browser's screen width. And this also same will set the min height to browser's frame height. Next, this will apply this teal 900 background color to this div. This will set this teal 900 color, right? Next, this will set this display to flex and make all the content center with these item center and justify center classes. Next, this will set the horizontal padding to 5 and this will set the vertical padding to 5. So guys, if any of you don't know about this anything, I recommend you guys to watch my Tailwind CSS crash course. I'll leave the link in the description. So on the right side, you can see the preview of these styles. Looks awesome, right? Alright, let's move on to the next div. So inside this first div, let's create another div and add these Tailwind classes. The first one is wfull, next mx auto, rounded excel, bg gray 100, shadow excel, text gray 800. After this, relative and overflow hidden. So guys, this mx auto will set this div horizontally margin to auto. This rounded class will set this div border to round. As you know, this will set the background to this color. This will set a shadow and this will set the text color to gray 800. Next, this class will set the div display relative and this overflow hidden will set the overflow hidden, right? So Tailwind CSS classes are very easy to understand, right? You guys can learn more about this in the official documentation of Tailwind CSS. So I'll leave the link in the description. Awesome. Next, let's write a custom CSS for this div and set this max width to 350 pixels. Awesome. Alright, so next inside this, create an h1 tag and the classes will be text white, py10, text 3xl and the font bold. The text is Angular calculator. Save this. Inside this preview, this is showing the inside of a gray color box. I don't want that. So remove this bg gray class from this previous div. Now this looks perfect. So guys, we added these Tailwind classes to this h1 tag. So nothing much here, just added this text white. So this class will set this h1 text color to white. You already know this, right? This will set vertical padding. This text 3xl will set this h1 font size larger, and at last this font bold will set this font to bold style font. Hope you guys got the idea. Alright, now next let's create the calculator screen. Create a div and set these Tailwind classes wfull, h40, bg gradient 2b, from gray 800 and to color gray 700. After this, text right. After this, next the function screen. So again create a div and these classes wfull, py5 px6 text to excel text white and font thin. Now inside this div add this text for now function. Later we'll make this dynamic, right? Save this. Something is wrong here. This gradient is not applied here correctly. Oops, this should be to gray 700. Right? This is not from, this should be to. Right? Save this and look at the browser. Now this looks perfect. So guys, for this previous div we added these Tailwind CSS classes wfull. As you know, this will set this div to full width h40. This will set the height of this div to 40, and this will add the gradient background to this div's bottom. With this we are applying to gradient from and to background colors, gradient first color and the second color. Next we added this text right class, so this will display the text on the right side aligned inside this div. Okay, next we added this wfull again. You will already know that, which will set the width to full of this container. And next these are set paddings horizontal and vertical. Next this will set the font size, this will set the text color to white, and this will set the thickness of the font to thin. Right? Very simple. Okay guys, let's move on to the next section. Alright, now let's design the number screen. Okay, this is also the same as this function screen. Again, create a div with these classes wfull py5 px6 text 6xl. After that, text white, font thin. Inside this div add a random number which will make this dynamic later. So guys, these Tailwind CSS classes are the same as the previous. I hope I don't want to explain that again. Alright, let's move on to the next. So this is the end of the calculator screen. So next let's design the calculator buttons area. So after this, create a div with these classes wfull bg gradient to b from red 500 to red 800. Now inside this button area div, let's create the first row of the buttons. Again, create a div and add these Tailwind CSS classes flex wfull. As you know, this will set this div display to flex and this will set to full width. Okay, now inside this let's create another div. So the classes are w-2/4 border dash r border dash b border dash red dash 500. So for this div we used some new Tailwind CSS classes. So inside this button row we gonna place 4 buttons in a row. So that's what I defined here. So in this row we have 4 columns. From that 4 columns, use 2 columns for this div or this button. Okay, next we got this border dash r. This will add the border on the right side and this will add the border on the bottom side. With this we set the border color to this red 400 Tailwind CSS color. Before we move on, let's add a comment here so we can differentiate these divs, right? So this will be the first button row of the calculator. Awesome. Now inside this div let's add a button tag with these Tailwind classes as usual. wfull h16 outline none hover bg red 700 hover bg opacity 20. Actually I done a mistake here. Add a space or an enter between these 2 classes. otherwise this will not work. Alright, so next add this text white, text opacity 50, text Excel font light, and the button name is C. So we will use this button C to clear the calculator values, right? So guys, this W full will add the full width. This will set the height to 16. This will set the button outline to none. This will set this red 700 background color to this button when we hover this button. So for this we use the Tailwind pseudo class, right? Hover. This will set this button hover opacity to 20. This will set text opacity. This will set the font size. This will set the font weight to light. Okay. These classes are not hard to learn. Tailwind is very user-friendly CSS framework, right? Alright, so now let's add the second button of this first row. Create a button tag and add these classes. These classes are also the same as the previous. W full, H16, outline none, focus, outline none, over, BG red 700, hover, BG opacity 50, text Excel font light. These all classes same as the previous button, so I already explained it, so I think I don't need to explain it again, right? So now save this. Something is wrong. Oops, I made a mistake here. We have to define the column div for the second button as well. So this is the clear button. So let's add the comment for this. Next, cut the second button from the first column. And after this, actually this button is for the percentage function. So let's add a comment for it. Inside this, create a div and add these classes w1/4, border R, border B, and border red 400. These all classes are the same as the previous button except this width class. For this clear button, we set the width of 2 columns from 4 columns width, right? For this percentage button, we allocate 1 column size from all total 4 columns, right? So next, add the button inside this column div. The button text is percentage simple. Save this. This text color should be white, so add that here. Text white. Now this C is not visible perfectly, so let's remove this text opacity from this clear button. Perfect. Now this looks awesome. Alright, now let's add the last button of this first row. So after this, add this comment. This button is for the multiplication function, so add this comment. After this, create a div and add these classes. This is also the same as the previous button, so add these same classes here as well. The row width is 1 from 4, border R, border bottom, border red 400. After this, inside this div, create a button and add these classes. Nothing new here. This is also the same as the previous one. If you want, you can copy and paste it, right? So the classes are W full, outline none, focus outline none, BG red 700, BG opacity 10, text white, text to Excel, font light. So now save this. There is an issue. I forgot to add the height class, so let's add that here. Now this looks perfect. Awesome. So guys, this is the end of the first button row. So now let's start the second button row. First, let's add the comment. I'm adding these comment tags for you guys to understand what is happening here. This is not compulsory to add. Okay. Alright, so now let's create the second row div with these classes. Inside this, let's add the first button. So first, the column div. In this row, we'll place 4 buttons. So the width is 1 from 4, border R, border B, and border red 400. Next, the button. All the classes are the same as the previous. And the button text is number 7. Save this. Now this looks perfect. Alright, let's add the other button columns. This time let's duplicate this. Duplicate this first column 3 times. The first column is number. So the second column, the first column is number 7. So the second column will be number 8. Third button is number 9. And the last button is for multiplication. Looks perfect. So this is the end of the second row. Now let's move on to the third row. For this also, let's copy this second row and paste it here. So now this will be the third row. The first button is for number 4. The second button is for number 5. The third button is for number 6. The last button function is minus. Looks awesome. Again, copy and paste the previous row for this fourth row. The first button number is number 1, number 2, next number 3, and the function button is plus. Perfect. Now the last button row of our Angular calculator. For this also, first create the row div with these classes. Inside this, create the column. Same as previous, inside this create the button for the number 0. The second button is for the decimal sign. And the last button is for the equal sign. So this button width is 2 from 4 columns, right? So save this all and look at the browser. Our Angular calculator design is ready. Looks awesome, right? Alright, the Angular calculator design part is over. Now let's make this calculator functional. So for this, first thing first, open the app component ES file. Inside this, we'll write the logical part of our Angular calculator. Alright, let's begin. First, let's create some global variables. So the first variable is cal value and this type is number. Assign this to number 0. Next, create another variable fun t. This t is capital. Set this type to any and assign it to a string value something, no function. Guys, actually I created these two variables to assign the current value and the function of the calculator. So as you can see here, we display the value and the function inside the calculator screen. So if you can remember, we added the static values when we doing the designing part. Now let's make this dynamic using these variables. So how do we do that? Very simple. We can simply add this with the string interpolation in Angular, right? So go to the app component HTML file and first let's make this function screen dynamic. Remove the static value and add this. We declare the string interpolation scope using the double curly brackets. So inside this, add the variable. So we're going to use the funT variable for this. Now as you can see here, this time we got this no function text inside the calculator, which is coming from this funT global variables default value. Awesome, right? So let's move on, do the same for this calculator value as well. So remove the default static value and add string interpolation. Inside this variable name is cal value. So guys, addition to this, we will use the Angular number pipe for this. So this number pipe will format this number readable by adding commas, right? If any of you don't know about the string interpolation and pipes and Angular logical things, I strongly recommend you guys to watch my Angular full course where I explained everything about Angular A to Z. Alright, so next let's create a method to capture the input values of the calculator. So inside this class scope, create a method. The method name is onClickValue. Carefully follow these capital simple letters. After this, method parameter and the method scope. So we capture the calculator value with a parameter variable. So declare a parameter variable, something called val, and this type will be string. Next, we'll create another parameter variable to capture the type of the calculator value. So in our calculator, we have two types of inputs, right? Number and functions. So inside this method, we have to differentiate these two types of inputs. Then only we can do the calculator logics, right? So in order to capture the input calculator value type, we'll use another parameter variable, something type. And this type will be any. Now inside this, simply console log these two parameter variables so we can understand this easily. Now we defined the method. Now let's call this method when clicking this clear button. So inside this button tag, for this we're going to use the Angular click event binding option. So how do we do that? Very simple. Just inside the bracket add the event name, which in our case click. Now inside quotes, let's call the method. The method name is onClickValue. After this, add the parentheses. So this method requires two parameters. One is the calculator clicked value. Another one is the type of the calculator value, which can be a number or function. So in this case, we are using this click event on this C or the clear button. So the click value will be C. Pass this as a string. Next, the type. This C is a function, so pass function as the second parameter. Let's add this method to the next button in this first row as well. So the second button is this percentage button. So copy this and paste it inside the percentage button. Value parameter is percentage symbol. Type is this also function. So keep this as it is. Perfect. Next button is this divide button. So add the click event for this as well. So the value is slash symbol. The type is function. That's it. So now if we click one of these first row buttons, these values should log inside the browser console. So let's see this in action. Save this and back to the browser and open the browser console. Now click on the clear button and look at this guy. Inside the browser console, we can see this log, the value and the type parameter values. Again, click on this percentage and divide buttons. These buttons value and types are also logged inside this browser console, which means our first step in capturing the data of the calculator input is successfully working as we expected. Perfect. Alright, now let's add this click event binding to all other buttons. Next we got the number 7 button, so copy and paste the click event here, and this time the value parameter is number 7 and the type is number, not the function, right? So save this and click the number 7 button inside the view. As you can see here, this time we got these values, number 7 and the type number. Awesome, right? So now let's do this for all other buttons. Alright, so other buttons also working as we expected. Right, so now let's move on to the logical part. So first thing first, let's capture and call different methods for different input types. For example, if the type is number, we'll call a something number method. And if this type is a function, we will call something function method to do the calculation logic parts, right? Let's see this in action. So inside this method, remove this log, we don't need that anymore. After that, let's create an if condition loop. If this parameter type is equal to a number, we'll call this onNumberClick method, right? So we are getting a compile error. Why is that? Because we are calling this method, but we didn't declare this method yet. So let's create this method after this first method scope. So create our new method. The method name is onNumberClick after this parentheses and the method scope. So guys, in order to do the number manipulations, we need the calculator input value inside this method as well. So how do we get that? Very simple. Just pass this value parameter variable to this onNumberClick as well. In order to capture this passing parameter, we have to capture that inside this method as well. So define a parameter variable val and type is a string. This parameter variable name is just a variable name. You guys don't need to follow this as mine. Awesome, right? Now inside this, first we'll write the logic, then after that I'll explain the code. So first create a global variable, something called calNumber. This type will be string and the default value will be any value. Alright, now inside the onNumberClick method, let's write the logic. Create an if condition. The condition is this dot calNumber not equals to no value. If this is true, assign this calNumber to this dot calNumber plus val. In this else condition, we simply assign this calNumber to this parameter variable val, right? So after this if else condition, add this this dot cal value phrase float inside the parentheses, pass this cal number. That's it for the code. Now let's see what is happening here. Before this, let's see this in action. I did a mistake here. Some of you may notice this. I assigned any value as this cal number default value. But inside this if condition, I am checking this default value, no value. So in order to fix this, change this default value to no value. Save this and back to the browser. Click on the number inputs on our Angular calculator. As you can see here, now we can see the number value displaying inside the calculator screen. So from where this magic is happening? Can you guys guess? Yes, of course, this is working with this logic that we wrote a few minutes back. So some of you may guys understand this logic, but some of you may not. So guys, allow me to explain this logic. So this is very simple, nothing fancy. So if you can remember, we captured the input value from this onClickValue method. If the clicked value type is number, we are calling this onNumberClicked method. So this is what we are doing with this if condition. So after that, we created another global variable called calNumber, and we assigned a default value for that global variable, no value, right? So we created this global variable to check whether there is any value showing inside the calculator or not. This is what we are checking here. If this cal number value is in default state, which means no value, we directly assign the calculator input value to the cal number. If this cal number is not in default state, which means there is a value inside the calculator already, what we did here is we capture that cal value. It is already assigned to the cal number variable, right? So I concat the newly input number to the current value. So this is what I did here. I know it is a bit confusing, right? Let's see this with an example. At the initial stage of this calculator, the calculator display value is 0 and the cal number global value is also in its default state, which is this no value state, right? The first time user clicks on a number, we have to show that number inside the calculator display. So in order to show this number inside the calculator display, we have to assign this number to this cal value global variable. Why do we have to assign that number to the cal value global variable? Can you guys guess? Yes, of course. We are displaying this cal value variable inside the view using the string interpolation, right? So in order to show the user's input, we have to assign that value to this cal value variable. In our calculator, we have two types of user inputs. One is number type and the second one is function type. So when the user clicked a button, first we have to capture whether that clicked button is a number input or a function input. So that's what we doing here. When the user clicked, we call this method with two parameters, the value of the button and the type of the clicked button, which can be a function or a type number. So this is what we are doing with this if else statement. If this type is a number, we are calling this onNumberClick method. So from this method, we have somehow to display the user input number inside the calculator view, right? So guys, in order to show this inside the calculator view, we have to assign the user clicked action value to the cal value variable. So as I said earlier, we display only this variable cal value inside the view using the string interpolation. So guys, here we have a problem. We cannot access this user clicked value from this method. So as a solution for this, we pass that val parameter to this onNumberClick method as well. So guys, this is what we did here. Alright, so now we have assigned this value to the cal value variable, but we have another problem. If the user want to add one number, he can simply click the number 1 button. But if he wants to add the number 11, he has to click the number 1 calculator button twice, right? In order to show this clicked value, we have to concat each and every input number of user, right? So this is what we doing here. But you guys may think, why do we add this if else condition? when the user input the first number, in that stage there is no value to concat. So we have to capture that, right? So in order to capture that, I did create another new global variable called calNumber and assigned a default value, no value, right? So at the first, this variable value is assigned to no value. So I'm checking whether this calNumber value is not equal to no value or the default value. If it is not equal to the no value, which means there is already assigned a number. We do the concatenation here if this equals to the default value, which means there is no value assigned to this variable. Again, this means there is no input number before. So we don't need to do the concatenation. We can directly assign the user input value to the calNumber value, right? So once again, if the user wants to input the number 11, so the user must click the number 1 button twice. So when clicking the first time number 1, we don't need to do the concatenation. This is what we did here. When the user input the second number, we have to concat the user input first number and the current input number. This is what we did here. At the initial stage, this calNumber is assigned to a default value. So if it is in default state, we don't need to do the concatenation. If it is in its default state, which means already a number assigned to this variable. So in that case, we have to concat the current number input with the previous number. So hope you guys got the idea. At last, in order to display this inside the calculator display, I assign this calNumber variable, which is carrying this user input number by converting it to a number value. So why is that? Because this calNumber value is a string and this calValue number type is a number. So we cannot assign a string to a number type. So that's why I phrase this to a number value. Very simple, right? Alright, we successfully completed displaying the number inside the calculator view. Now let's work on the functions. This is also easy. So if you can remember, in our calculator we have two access type, number input and the function input. So we already captured and wrote the code for the number type action. Now let's capture the function type input and let's do the logic. This is also the same as the previous. Inside this onClick value method, after this add another else if condition. So the condition is, this time we are checking the function type. So the condition is type equals to function. Inside this, let's call to a method called onFunctionClick and pass the value as a parameter for this method. We are getting a compile error because we don't have created this method yet. So let's create this method. After this, onFunctionClick, carefully follow the simple capital letters, and after this parentheses, we are getting a parameter. So create a parameter variable. Well, this type will be string. This is just a parameter variable name. No need to follow this, exactly same as mine. So inside this, let's write the logic. So guys, like the previous, we have to track this also if it is the first function or the second function. So let's do the code and after that I'll explain the code. So first let's create if condition to track the function. If inside brackets, check the funT variable in default state or not. So this dot funT equals no function. Inside this, let's add the logic. Before this, we have to create two variables. So inside the global scope, create two variables. First variable is first number, the type is number, and assign default value 0. Next, the second variable name is second number, the variable type is number, and the default value is 0. Perfect. Next, inside the method, write this condition. This dot first number assign this dot cal value. After this, reset the cal value. So this dot cal value assign to 0. Next, reset the cal number variable. So this dot cal number assigned to its default value, which is no value. After this, we assign the function to fun t variable. So we capture the user input with this parameter variable. So this dot fun t assigns val, which is this parameter variable name. I made a mistake here. This should be capital N because we set the default value for this fun t variable no function with the capital N, right? Now save this and go to the browser. As you can see here, this time after we enter the first number and when we click one of the functions, this calculator value is set to 0 and this no function changed to the current clicked function, right? So guys, this is what we did with these codes. So as I said earlier, the first thing first, we have to check that is this function is the first function that the user input. So this is what we are checking with this if condition. If this fun t variable is in its default value, which means this is the first function input of the user. So if this is the first function, we did this. So first we assigned the user input number value to the first number global variable because we need to store the first number, right? So then only we can do the calculation. So this will be the first number. After that, we reset or assigned the cal value variable to the 0. And also we set the cal number variable to its default state, no value. And at the end, we assign the user input function to the fun t variable, which means it's now changed from its default value. So when the user input the second function, this if condition will not work. So I hope you guys got the idea. Alright, now let's do the else part. So as previous, first let's write the code, then we'll do the explanation of the code after that. Okay. So after this, add the else if condition. This condition is this time this dot fun t is not equals to no function, its default value, right? So inside this, we'll assign the cal value to the second number global variable. That's it for this second condition. Can you guys guess that what we did here? It's very simple. If this is the second function input, which means there is already a first number. This time we have to capture the second number. So we assigned the user input cal value to the second number variable. In order to perform a calculation, we need two numbers. So that is what we did here. If this fun t is no function, which means the user inputs the first number. If there is a function already, it means this time the user input it's the second number. So hope you guys got the idea. Perfect. So guys, now we have the first number, second number and the function. So now we can perform the calculation according to that function. So let's do the calculation. So for this also we'll create another new method so we can easily separate the codes, right? So inside this, after this call, this method is something value calculate and pass the parameter variable val. Still we don't have this method, so that's why we are getting this compile error. Let's create the method. So after this method, create our new method, which is the value calculate and parentheses. Inside this we are getting the user input value, so create a parameter variable. Awesome. So inside this method, let's do the calculations. First we have to filter the function, like if the user inputs the function for addition, we have to do the addition, right? If the user inputs the minus, we have to do the minus function, right? If it is multiplication, we have to do the multiplication. So we can filter that using the another if else condition, the same as the previous. So inside this method, create an if condition and the statement is if this fun t variable value is equal to plus sign, we have to do the addition. So we used this fun t variable because we stored the user input function inside this fun t variable. Okay. Alright, so inside this we have to do the addition. So let's do that. First create a variable something const total and assign. Now let's do the addition. This dot first number plus this dot second number. So if you can remember, we stored the user input numbers with these first and second number variables. Next, we have to display the calculated value inside the calculator screen. Let's do that. For that, assign this total to the cal value global variable. That's it. Now save this and back to the browser. Add 8 plus 8. Again, press the plus symbol. Look at this, guys. We got the answer displayed inside the calculator screen. Awesome, right? So guys, we have a small problem here. After we added this, we got this answer 16. But if I try to do another calculation, the 16 changed to number 8 again. Why is that? Because we just only did the calculations but did not reset the first number and the second number. Once we have completed the first calculation, the first number should become the current total amount. Then only we can do the second calculation or perform another calculation, right? If not, this will show the old number value inside the calculator. So let's see this in action. So first assign the total to the first number. After this, reset the second number. Assign it to 0. And also reset the cal number variable to its default state, no value. And set the function variable to the current function, which is we are getting from this parameter variable. Well, now save this and back to the browser. Let's do another calculation. 99 plus 5. The answer should be 104. We got that inside the screen. Now this time press the minus again. As you can see here, we can see the current function also inside the screen. Now press another number. As you can see here, this time this displayed without any problem. But guys, we cannot still perform the minus calculation because we still don't have the code for that minus calculation. So let's do that. This is also the same as the plus calculation, so copy and paste it after this if condition. This time we are checking on the minus, so change this plus sign to minus sign and change the calculation to minus. Others are same, no need to change anything. Let's add this for other functions as well. So again copy and paste this if statement. This time we'll do the multiplication. So add the multiplication to the if condition and change the calculation function to multiplication. As you can see here, we are repeating the same set of codes again and again. Rather than repeating the same code again and again, we can put them inside of a separate method and we can call the method inside this if statement. So let's do that. After this, create another method called total assign values and the parentheses. So in order to display the total, we have to access the total value inside this method as well. So we can get that total from this method to this as a parameter. So create a parameter variable total and this type will be number. Wait, we need another parameter as well, which is the current user input function. So we're carrying that to this method as another parameter. So create another parameter val and this type will be string. So this val is this method parameter. So now inside this method, cut these codes and paste it here. So now let's call this method from this addition if statement. This dot method name is total assign values and the parentheses. This require two variables, total and the val. So pass them here. That's it. Now this looks cleaner than the previous, right? So next do the same for other if statement as well. Copy and paste this method call. Looks perfect. Alright, now let's create if statement for other functions as well. Copy and paste this. This is for divide, so change this symbol. Next again paste it this for percentage and change the symbols. That's it. Now let's write the equal function logic. So for this, let's create another separate method. The method name is something on equal press. After this, parentheses and the method scope. This time for this method, we don't need to get any parameters, so keep this empty. So inside this, nothing much. We have to do some resetting here, same as this. So guys, if a user press the equal function, that means that is the end of that calculation, right? In that case, we have to reset our calculator to its default state. So let's see this in action. Inside this, first reset the first number. So this dot first number assigned to 0. Next, do the same to the second number, assign it to 0. Next, set the funty variable to its default value, no function. After this, set the cal number to its default state, no value. That's it. So guys, we successfully created the method for the equal function. Now we have to call this equal method after every calculation if the user press the equal function. So inside the value calculate method, inside this first addition calculation, add another if statement to check whether the function is equal function or not. If the condition is the parameter variable val, which is carrying the user input function value, right? Check this is whether equals to the equal function. So add the equal sign. If this is true, call the onEqual press method. This method doesn't require any parameters, so keep this parameter empty. That's it. If the user press the equal sign, this will call this method to the equal function logic. Awesome. Next, we have to check this on each and every calculation. So add this if condition on all of these calculations. Just copy and paste it. That's it for the equal function logic. Now save this and back to the browser. Add 1 plus 1 and click equal. Look at this. This time we got the answer, and as well as this function is set to its default state. Now again do another calculation. Awesome, right? Everything working as we expected. Alright, so next let's move on to the last function of our calculator, which is this clear function. For this also, first create a method. So the method name is clear all parentheses and the method scope. We don't need any parameter variables. Inside this, as usual, set all the variable to its default state. To clear the calculator, let's start with the first number. Set this to 0. Yes, of course, it's the default value of this first number. So next, the second number. So set this to 0. Next, the cal value. This also set this to 0. So this cal value will show inside the calculator screen, right? So next, set the funty to no function and set the cal value to no value. That's it. Now we have the method. So in order to execute this method, we have to call this method when a user press the clear function button. So we capture all the functions clicks inside the on function click method. So inside this top of the method, create a condition to check whether the user clicked on the clear function or not. So before this, create if statement and the condition is check this funty variable is C or not. If this is C, call the clear all method. After this, join this condition to this by adding else to this second if condition. That's it. Save this and back to the browser. As you can see here, this time our clear function is working as we expected. Perfect. So before the end of this tutorial, let's do a small thing. As you can see here, inside all of these calculations, we are using this if condition to perform the equal function. So rather than repeating this several times, we can put this inside the total assign value method. So every time this calculation condition calling this method, this equal function check execute automatically, right? That's it. Another mistake, this clear function check condition variable should be this parameter variable where we capture the user input, right? So change it. Awesome. Save this and back to the browser. As you can see here, now this is working without any issues. Alright guys, this is it for this tutorial. I did my best to explain all the logic behind this Angular calculator. This is just one method to build a calculator using Angular framework. But you can use any method that is suitable for you. If you guys have any problem, any question, please feel free to ask in the comment section. If you like this and found this useful, please don't forget to give a thumbs up, and any of you are new to Okta Academy, please don't forget to subscribe. Alright guys, we'll meet you with another awesome tutorial like this. Until then, learn smart, not hard.